In the Peach Blossom photography studio, Su Xiao wore a low-cut red mermaid dress that clung to every curve of her body, sculpting her silhouette with breathtaking precision. Her delicate, porcelain skin glowed with a soft radiance under the studio lights, looking so tender that even the lightest touch might leave a red mark. She leaned forward slightly, her hips tilting up in a natural curve, her eyes carrying a hint of seductive allure as she gazed straight ahead. The lighting technician, photographer, and makeup artist surrounded her like planets orbiting a sun, every face etched with unabashed admiration. "Miss Su, turn your head a little, toss your hair, and give me a smoldering look." "Yes, perfect," the photographer called out, practically vibrating with excitement. "Oh my God, Miss Su is just too beautiful. I'm a woman, and even I'm getting lost in those eyes." The makeup artist beside him couldn't help but sigh. "No wonder she's the woman all the crown princes of the capital circle chase after. Such a shame she got married so young. I heard Miss Su is doing this photo shoot as a gift for her husband. That man must be the luckiest guy alive," the lighting technician murmured quietly to himself. When the session wrapped, Su Xiao leaned lazily against the wall, a flirtatious smile curling at the corner of her lips. She picked up her phone and carefully scrolled through the photos they had just taken, selecting a few of the most stunning ones and sending them straight to Gu Shirmu. Her mind spun with a single smug thought. Humph. Let's see if that self-restrained, ascetic man can stay unmoved after seeing these pictures. After the shoot ended, Su Xiao prepared to leave the studio. She had barely taken a step when she suddenly stopped, her brow furrowing slightly. That familiar male voice. Why did it sound so much like her husband, Gu Shirmu? But then she almost laughed at herself, shaking her head gently. How could it possibly be Gu Shirmu? It was just a voice that sounded similar. After all, Gu Shirmu had a severe allergy to women. She remembered it clearly. After marrying Gu Shirmu, she had been full of anticipation, longing for some kind of physical intimacy with him. But that night, the moment she barely touched him, his entire body broke out in red welts, and he could barely breathe. Her thoughts drifted back, and her curiosity was suddenly piqued. She couldn't help but steal a glance through the door that had been left slightly ajar. She wanted to see who had the audacity to be so brazen, playing around like that in a place like this. That one glance hit her like a lightning strike. The man inside the room was unbelievably Gu Shirmu. His face was flushed with a kind of passion and pleasure she had never seen before. And the woman he held so tightly in his arms, when Su Xiao finally made out her face, she felt every drop of blood in her body freeze solid in an instant. It was her own biological mother, Shun Jiuyu. In that split second, Su Xiao felt as if a massive meteorite had slammed directly into her, rooting her to the spot, unable to speak for what felt like an eternity. She had never dreamed, not even in her worst nightmares, that seeing her mother again would unfold like this. The next second, her eyes flew wide open, her face contorted with pure fury. She shoved open the door to the lounge, and it slammed against the wall with a heavy, muffled thud. "Ah!" A startled cry rang out, and Gu Shirmu, still holding Shinjuyu, quickly dodged to the side. Su Xiao stared hard at the two bodies pressed together, her hands unconsciously clenching into fists at her sides, her fingernails digging so deep into her palms that it felt like the only way to suppress the agony tearing through her heart. Gu Shirmu looked at her, and there wasn't a trace of embarrassment or guilt on his face over being discovered. There was only irritation and impatience at having his pleasure interrupted. He frowned and said, his voice dripping with annoyance, "What the hell are you throwing a fit about?" "Me? Throwing a fit?" Su Xiao's eyes were round as saucers, glaring death at the man in front of her. Her gaze burned with fury and disbelief, and she demanded, her voice sharp with accusation, "Gu Shirmu, aren't you supposed to be allergic to women? You owe me an explanation, both of you right now." Gu Shirmu's eyelids lowered, his long lashes casting shadows beneath them. He slowly bent down, picked up the disheveled clothes scattered nearby, and gently draped them over the woman in his arms. His voice was ice-cold and dismissive. "There's nothing to explain. What your eyes saw is the truth." I want a divorce. Su Xiao's red lips trembled uncontrollably. Her nails dug even deeper into her palms, leaving crescent-shaped blood marks. It took every ounce of strength she possessed just to force those words out. Gu Shimu's brow furrowed into a deep scowl, his tone laden with disgust. You were the one who cried and begged to marry me in the first place. What kind of drama are you trying to stir up now? She loved him down to the marrow of her bones. And in his mind, she could never bear to actually divorce him. The day of their blind date, he had worn a perfectly tailored gray suit, his tie knotted with immaculate precision. Behind his rimless gold-framed glasses, his eyes were as cold as a snow-capped mountain, radiating an aura that kept everyone at arm's length. His open shirt collar revealed just a glimpse of a solid chest, carrying an indescribable, untold temptation. With just one look, Su Xiao had made up her mind. She had to have this man. Her friends had all warned her. Even if you're the most beautiful heiress in the capital circle, the kind who can make countless men fall at your feet with just one glance, Gu Shimu is different. He's not interested in women. He'll never marry you. But she was stubborn, refusing to listen. She ignored her father's desperate pleas, kneeling in front of their family home for 3 days and 3 nights until the skin on her knees was raw and bleeding. That was what finally secured the alliance between the two families. But now, seeing with her own eyes this filthy scene of him entangled with another woman, it was like a sharp blade viciously stabbing into her heart. Those images replayed in her mind on an endless loop, scorching her internal organs, making her wish she were dead. She stumbled toward the two of them, her feet unsteady. She raised her hand, gathering every shred of strength she had, and swung hard at the man's face.
Slap.
The crisp sound of the slap echoed through the silent space. A red welt bloomed rapidly across Gu Shimu's cheek. He merely frowned with displeasure, his eyes filled with nothing but loathing. Fei! Shen Juyu cried out, her heart aching, and rushed to Gu Shimu's side. Her hands gently cupped his face, then she spun around, her eyes blazing with fury as she glared at Su Xiao and shrieked, Su Xiao, you've gone too far. I've gone too far. Su Xiao's eyes were bloodshot, and she stared at Shen Juyu like a raging lioness. Her voice shook. My husband and my own mother having an affair. Tell me, who's really gone too far here? As she spoke, she raised her hand again, this time aiming for Shen Juyu's face. But just as her palm was about to land, a sharp pain seized her wrist. Gu Shimu had grabbed her and roughly flung her arm aside. Su Xiao, have you made enough of a scene? Su Xiao's hand slammed into the corner of a table, the searing pain jolting through her body and snapping her back to full, brutal clarity. When she slapped him, he didn't even flinch. But the moment he saw Shen Juyu about to be hit, he immediately intervened, blocking the blow like some kind of hero rushing to her rescue. Su Xiao stared at Gu Shimu, a chaotic storm of emotions swirling in her heart. She didn't know what her 5 years of devotion had even meant anymore. She only felt like a complete joke, cruelly toyed with by fate. A self-mocking smile twisted at the corner of Su Xiao's mouth. She spun on her heel, slammed the door behind her with a deafening bang, and stormed out. This marriage was over. She was done. Behind her, the intimate sounds of those two reached her ears once more. Shen Yujiao's voice carried a hint of worry. Xiao Fei, should you go out and explain things to her? Gu Shimu's reply was utterly dismissive. Explain what? I've never loved her. There's nothing to explain. Shen Yujiao spoke again. But I heard Xiao say you're allergic to women. Gu Shimu let out a light laugh, his tone playful and mocking. That was all just a lie to fool her. Look at me now. Do I look like a man allergic to women? Shen Yujiao's voice turned coy and scolding. Not allergic. Ah, not so rough. Su Xiao stood outside the door, tears streaming silently, uncontrollably, down her cheeks. She had once believed his allergy was real. For that, she had traveled all over the country, consulted every famous doctor she could find, and pored through ancient and modern medical texts alike. She never imagined it was simply that he didn't want to touch her, that he just didn't love her. She wiped fiercely at her tears, her hand trembling slightly as she pulled out her phone. She dialed the police, her voice colder than a block of ice. I want to report a crime. Gu Shermu, CEO of the Gu Group, for adultery and incest. Half an hour later, the police station. Gu Shermu sat in the interrogation room, his expression calm and collected. He looked less like a man facing police questioning and more like a CEO listening to a subordinate's report. Except his hair was a little disheveled, and the edges of his clothes were wrinkled from being grabbed, a stark contrast to his usual impeccably groomed appearance. Gu Shermu slowly lifted his eyelids, his gaze landing heavily on Su Xiao, who sat across from him. He spoke coldly. You'd better give me a reasonable explanation for this. Su Xiao had her arms folded across her chest, her back leaning comfortably against the chair. A sarcastic smile tugged at her lips. Divorce compensation. I want $50 billion and 51% of the Gu Group shares. Shen Yujiao gasped, her face a mask of disbelief. Her lips trembled as she said, Su Xiao, you've been with A Fei for 5 years. How can you be so heartless to him? That much cash and equity was enough to hollow out the entire Gu Group and hand the reins of power over to the Su family. Su Xiao let out a cold laugh, her eyes razor-sharp. When you stole your own daughter's boyfriend, did you stop to think about the 5 years I spent with him? She paused, then added, the CEO of the Gu Group and his mother-in-law. If this news gets out, the CEO of the Gu Group will be out of a job. Gu Shermu's eyes were filled with revulsion. His fingers tapped impatiently against the table. No news story you could leak compares to the photos you sent me. His gaze was frigid as he threatened her. If you dare harm a single hair on Yu Jiao's head, I'll make sure tomorrow's trending topics are nothing but your explicit photo shoot pictures. Su Xiao's heart jolted, her body stiffening slightly, the color draining completely from her face. The photos she had so carefully taken, trying to win his heart, had become his weapon to use against her. In that moment, it felt as if an invisible hand had seized her heart and squeezed until it was crushed to pulp. But even so, she stubbornly lifted her chin. She flung the photographs out with a snap, her voice cold and hard. Then you can wait for your reputation to be destroyed. Gu Shermu was holding Shen Yujiao close. The moment he saw the photos, his arms suddenly went rigid. The pictures clearly showed Gu Qing and Shen Yujiao together. There was a shot of her carefully straightening his tie, a shot of them locked in a passionate embrace, kissing, and even intimate images of their naked bodies intertwined. Anyone who saw those photos would think they were a couple madly, blissfully in love. As if engaging in an act of self-torture, Su Xiao stared fixedly at the photographs, the rims of her eyes gradually reddening. She turned her head, locking her gaze directly onto Gu Shermu, and enunciated every word with precision. The shares and the money. Not a single thing less. The air seemed to freeze solid in an instant. Gu Shermu's expression was dark and terrifying, utterly unreadable. Shen Yujiao's face had turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Her eyes widened, her voice trembling. When did you take these photos? As she spoke, she lunged forward like a madwoman, her hands frantically tearing the photos to shreds while screaming curses. Su Xiao, how did I give birth to such a vile woman like you? Spying on your own mother, taking secret photos. Has your conscience been eaten by dogs? The corner of Su Xiao's mouth curled into a mocking sneer. She waved her phone slightly. Go ahead and tear them up. I have backups. They can be leaked anytime. She had long anticipated that Gu Shermu, with his immense power in the capital, would immediately move to block the photos from spreading. But this time, she was confident she held all the winning cards. Gu Shermu rose from his seat, his face dark, and walked toward her step by step. The coldness in his eyes looked like it could freeze solid. When he reached her, so close that they were almost touching, she heard his voice, cold and detached. I'm single. Jiaoyu is single. We're two people in love. Go ahead and leak them. What nonsense are you spouting? Su Xiao suddenly sat bolt upright, her hands unconsciously clutching the hem of her shirt. Gu Shimu narrowed his eyes slightly and said coldly, "You keep saying I'm your husband. Do you have any proof?" Su Xiao shuddered violently, as if someone had struck a pressure point. The words died in her throat. He was right. There was nothing. Not a single intimate photo. Not one romantic love letter. Not even a token of affection. Their chat history was nothing but her one-sided confessions. If he replied with a single it could make her day, fill her with joy for an entire week. Those 5 years of marriage were nothing more than a one-woman show she had performed entirely by herself. Su Xiao forced her tears back, swallowing them down. A mocking smile twisted her lips. "Don't forget, we went to the registration office ourselves to get our marriage license. We even took wedding photos." "Is that so?" Gu Shimu's lips curled into a disdainful smirk. He abruptly grabbed Su Xiao by the arm, half dragging, half shoving her into the car, his voice hard.
"Fine.
Then let's go to the registration office and check. Let's see if we're actually husband and wife." 20 minutes later, they arrived at the registration office. The clerk looked at Su Xiao politely. "Miss Su, our system shows that both you and Mr. Gu are currently unmarried." Su Xiao felt a wave of blackness wash over her vision. Her pupils constricted sharply. It was as if a sledgehammer had slammed into her chest, leaving her so suffocated she could barely breathe. She had clearly gone with Gu Shimu to get their marriage license. How could she be listed as unmarried? Gu Shimu shot her a cold glance, then slowly raised his hand, the one tightly intertwined with Shen Yujiao's. His fingers gently caressed the back of Shen Yujiao's hand. "Yujiao is my fiancé." On their ring fingers, a pair of pigeon egg-sized diamond rings glinted under the bright lights, the glare piercing like a sharp blade straight into Su Xiao's eyes. She remembered it so clearly. After she and Gu Shimu had gotten their marriage license, she had been overjoyed, dragging him along to pick out diamond rings. But Gu Shimu had only said flatly, "A ring is just a frivolous, impractical thing. I'm very busy, I don't have time for this nonsense." And now, here he was, wearing the very ring he had called inconvenient, holding it up high as if declaring his sovereignty to the whole world. "From now on, Miss Su, please know your place." With that, he gently squeezed Shen Yujiao's hand and led her away. Su Xiao watched their retreating figures, her nails digging hard into her palms until they drew blood. She forced the corners of her mouth upward, pulling out a smile that looked more painful than tears. She noticed it. Their hands were clasped together, skin against skin. And Gu Shimu showed absolutely no sign of an allergic reaction. She had been blind for 5 whole years. Su Xiao pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed her lawyer's number. "What exactly happened with that marriage license, Gu Shimu, and I got back then?" There was a few seconds of silence on the other end before the lawyer slowly spoke. "Miss Su, what you received back then was a fake marriage license. It was specially arranged by Mr. Gu." Su Xiao's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles turned white. After a long moment, she let out a cold laugh and hung up. Immediately after, she dialed another number. "Dad, I agree. I'll go abroad." Her father's surprised and delighted voice came through the line. "Really? You've thought it through clearly?"
"Yeah."
What was there left for Su Xiao not to understand? She had always thought she wasn't good enough. That was why Gu Shimu didn't like her. Now she finally knew this marriage had been a fraud from the very beginning. She had become a complete and utter joke. Not long after, her father sent over the flight information. The departure date was set for 3 days from now. She just had to wait 3 more days, and she could leave this place for good, leave Gu Shimu behind forever. When Su Xiao returned to the villa, the warm yellow light from inside spilled through the windows, draping over her. She stood at the doorway, took a deep breath, and slowly pushed the door open. Over the past 5 years, whenever Gu Shimu was home, aside from sleeping, he buried himself entirely in his work. He had practically never spent any time alone with her. At first, she thought he was just genuinely too busy with work. Now she understood. His heart had simply never been here. A wave of suffocating frustration surged in her chest. Irritated, she lifted her foot to kick off her high heels. Just then, a sickeningly sweet sound drifted from inside the house. Her movement froze instantly. Her face darkened abruptly. She followed the sound and looked into the room. On the living room sofa, two figures were tightly intertwined. Shin Juyu had her arms hooked around Gu Shirmu's neck, her cheeks flushed as red as ripe apples. "You've been with Xiao for so long. Do you prefer spending time with her or with me?" Gu Shirmu's voice was low, laced with dark intimacy. "It's you. I've always seen her as nothing more than your substitute." As if to prove his words, the man's movements became even more fervent. Shun Jiayu gasped lightly. Slow down, you're pressing against the baby." Su Xiao stood at the doorway, feeling the blood in her veins solidify, her hands and feet turning ice cold. So that was it. Gu Shirmu had married her only as a stand-in. No wonder. No matter how revealing her clothes, how seductive her movements, no matter how many tricks she used to try and entice him, Gu Shirmu would always end up rushed to the hospital with an allergic reaction. The most ridiculous part? The allergy was entirely an act. And she, the great beauty pursued by countless men, the woman who could make men obey her with a single flirtatious glance, had, after marriage, kept herself chaste for 5 years in a living widowhood for him. A sharp crack sounded. Su Xiao, her face icy, slapped the light switch on the wall. She quickly pulled out her phone, activated the video recording, and aimed the camera straight at the two on the sofa. Gu Shirmu's brow furrowed deeply, his voice suppressed with fury. "What do you think you're doing?" Su Xiao leaned back against the sofa, a mocking sneer curling at her lips, her eyes full of derision. Such a spectacular performance. Of course, I need to record to share with others so they can enjoy it too. In the next second, a violent pain seized Su Xiao's wrist. Gu Shirmu had somehow appeared beside her, his cold, harsh voice right next to her ear. "Delete the video." Su Xiao shook off his hand with force, then slapped at the spot where Gu Shirmu had touched her with evident disgust. "Don't touch me. You're filthy." The coldness in Gu Shirmu's eyes intensified. He was barely holding back his rage. "Su Xiao, stop with your princess tantrums. My patience has limits. Apologize to Juyu." Su Xiao lifted her eyes disdainfully, her gaze brimming with contempt. "And why should I apologize to the woman who stole my husband?" Shun Jiayu's face instantly drained of color, turning ghostly pale. She covered her mouth, tears streaming uncontrollably down her cheeks. "Xiao, I am your mother. How can you speak to me like that?" The rims of Su Xiao's eyes were so red they looked ready to bleed, but her voice was cold as ice shards. "You are not my mother." Rage surged through Gu Shirmu, his expression darkening ominously. The veins on his forehead bulged. He ground his teeth and spat out each word. "Disrespecting your mother, defying all decency. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of Juyu today." The moment the words left his mouth, 2 bodyguards strode toward her with heavy steps. Su Xiao felt dizzy and lightheaded, but she forced herself to stand, enduring the discomfort. She raised her hand and lashed out, slapping one of the bodyguards hard across the face. But the bodyguard's cheek didn't even show a red mark. Instead, her own wrist was seized and pinned. The 2 bodyguards grabbed her from both sides, hoisting her up and dragging her toward the stairs. Her feet scraped along the floor, leaving long trails behind. They reached the rooftop terrace. Half her body was shoved out past the railing, dangling precariously. The cold wind howled past her ears. A massive surge of terror rose from the depths of her heart like a tidal wave. "Let me go." From this height, a fall would mean certain death. Su Xiao screamed at the top of her lungs, instinctively clawing at the arms of the bodyguard behind her. Her nails sank deep into his skin, leaving red scratches. Her hair was whipped into a wild mess by the wind. Her wrists were red and raw from the bodyguard's grip. But in the next instant, someone shoved her hard. Her feet left the rooftop completely. The moment her body was airborne, Su Xiao's mind went completely blank. It felt like all the blood in her body was rushing to her head, making her dizzy and faint. Then the violent pain hit her. It came like a raging tide, surging over her and drowning her in an instant.
Pain.
Excruciating, bone-deep pain. Her body slammed into the ground in a horribly twisted, unnatural position. Warm liquid flowed steadily from beneath her. Su Xiao opened her mouth, wanting to scream, wanting to howl, but her throat felt blocked, as if something was lodged there. All that came out was a hoarse, desperate, rasping sound. A single cold tear slipped from the corner of her eye, falling without warning. It hurt so much. There wasn't a single part of her body that didn't hurt. But the pain in her heart was dozens of times worse than the physical pain. She had once believed that even if she and Gu Shirmu could never have physical intimacy after 5 years of marriage, he must love her in some way. Now, in this moment of searing agony, she finally woke up to the brutal truth. This man she had spent 5 years of her life with truly, genuinely did not love her. Su Xiao was jolted awake by the pain. She slowly opened her eyes and found her entire body wrapped in bandages like a mummy, her left leg in a heavy cast. Just then, she sensed someone nearby and lifted her gaze to look. Shen Juyu was leaning against Gu Shirmu, one hand continuously wiping away tears as she sobbed pitifully. I worked so hard to raise her. I really don't know why she turned out this way. Was it something I did wrong? As she spoke, she gently tugged at the edge of Gu Shirmu's shirt. Gu Shirmu reached out, gently wiping the tears from the corner of her eyes. He patted her shoulder in a practiced, comforting gesture, his voice soft. You did wonderfully. This isn't your fault. It's Su Xiao who has a malicious heart. Stop crying. I'll go buy you your favorite candied chestnuts. With that, he turned to leave. Listening to Gu Shirmu's footsteps fading away, Su Xiao bit down hard on the tender flesh inside her mouth. A coppery, bloody taste spread through her oral cavity. When she was little, if her father ever held her in his arms, Shen Juyu would fly into a violent rage, rushing over to hit and curse at her. Who told you to hug my husband? You little vixen. Little seductress. We're both women. Don't think I don't know what schemes you're cooking up. You dare fight me for a man, I'll beat you to death. To monopolize her husband's love, Shinjuyu had maliciously sowed discord in front of Su Xiao's father. She had spun vivid, detailed lies, saying that Su Xiao skipped school and bullied classmates. She said she had hooked up with a punk boyfriend with dyed yellow hair at a bar and was running wild outside of school. She even fabricated a story that Su Xiao had gotten pregnant and secretly had an abortion at a shady clinic. Because of her own mother's slander, Su Xiao never experienced the warmth of a family. At school, she endured endless, disdainful looks from her classmates. Her hatred for Shin Juyu was etched into her bones. The very first thing she did upon becoming an adult was sever all ties with her, ending their mother-daughter relationship. Later, her parents divorced. She thought she would never have to see this so-called mother again. She never imagined that upon their reunion, Shen Juyu would steal the person she loved most. Su Xiao's hands clenched tightly, nails digging into her flesh. She forced herself to pull free from the quicksand of agonizing memories. She slowly opened her eyes, her gaze landing on the woman's slightly swollen belly. A sneer of contempt twisted her lips. I really don't know if the bastard child in your belly should call me big sister or call me auntie. Shen Jiuyu's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with fury. She lunged forward in a few quick strides, grabbing a fistful of Su Xiao's hair. She glared at her darkly, her eyes looking ready to devour her alive. When you were in my womb, I should have beaten you to death. Su Xiao's reddened eyes burned like flames as she stared Shen Jiyu down, her words clipped and deliberate. Aren't you afraid this baby will also be a girl, one who will steal Gu Shirmu's love away from you? Shen Jiyu, you are truly pitiful. Aging and losing your looks, you finally found a man, got pregnant with his child, and now that child might just grow up to be your romantic rival. The words barely left her mouth before Su Xiao felt a tightening around her neck, a violent wave of suffocation crashing over her, stealing her breath. She could feel it. Shen Jiyu genuinely wanted to kill her. Even though she had long abandoned any shred of expectation from this mother, her chest still constricted with a dull, aching pain, as if stuffed with cotton. On the verge of death, Su Xiao summoned every last ounce of strength. She raised her hand and swung it viciously at the left side of Shen Jiyu's face.
Slap.
The crisp sound reverberated through the air. Shen Jiyu's pupils trembled in shock, as if she had been electrocuted. Her hands instinctively released their grip on Su Xiao's throat. Her eyes flew wide with disbelief, and she shrieked, "You dare hit me?" Su Xiao. Gu Shimu strode into the hospital room with long, furious steps. His eyes were ice-cold as he charged straight toward the bed. Su Xiao, covered in wounds, was curled up on the hospital bed like a helpless lamb. Without a word, Gu Shimu grabbed her arm and yanked her violently off the bed. His eyes were bloodshot, his teeth grinding audibly. "How dare you lay a hand on her?" A tidal wave of agony exploded from her left leg. Su Xiao's legs gave out, and she collapsed limply onto the ice-cold floor. But she stubbornly held her head high, her eyes filled with defiance. "She tried to strangle me. Should I just let her bully me?" Gu Shimu's gaze fell on Su Xiao's neck, which was red and swollen with deep purple bruising. The clear imprint of fingers was visible. His body gave a small jolt. His brow furrowed involuntarily. But then he remembered the red handprint on Shen Jiyu's face, and his eyes turned icy again. "She is your mother. She gave you your life. Even if she killed you, it would be justified. You owe her, so you endure it." Su Xiao covered her face with both hands, a harsh, grating laugh spilling out. She knew Gu Shimu was biased, but she hadn't known his bias could reach such an extreme. "I didn't ask her to give birth to me. I never owed her anything. I hit her this time, and I will hit her again next time." "Enough." Gu Shimu's eyes darkened ominously, the veins on his forehead standing out. He clenched his fists, a familiar habit. "It seems the last lesson wasn't enough. Whatever you did to Juyu, I will return on her behalf. 99 slaps. Not a single one less." Su Xiao lay collapsed on the ground, every ounce of strength drained from her body. All she could do was watch as the bodyguard approached her with heavy, deliberate steps. The bodyguard reached her side, extended a thick, powerful arm, and easily grabbed her by the collar, hauling her up. Immediately after, a resounding slap landed brutally on her left cheek. Su Xiao's head was knocked to the side. Her left cheek burned with a fiery, agonizing pain. Tears welled up, swimming in her eyes. The second slap came. Her head smashed against the bed frame. Her vision went black, stars flickering in front of her eyes. By the 50th slap, Su Xiao's face had gone completely numb. It felt like 2 slabs of heavy, dead meat were hanging from both sides of her skull. Breathing became a struggle. Every inhale felt like a knife was slicing through her throat. Finally, the 99th slap landed. A mouthful of fresh blood erupted from Su Xiao's lips, blossoming like a crimson flower. Her body collapsed heavily to the ground, her consciousness beginning to blur. Gu Shimu looked at Su Xiao's wretched state, and a flicker of something, reluctance, perhaps, passed through his eyes. His gaze lingered on her for a brief second, but it was quickly replaced by cold indifference. His voice was stiff. "If you hadn't hurt Juyu, it wouldn't have come to this." Su Xiao's mind was growing hazy, but her heart was filled with nothing but bitter irony. She had never wanted to harm Shinjuyu, but Shinjuyu had been hell-bent on taking her life. Gu Shimu turned around and gently wrapped his arm around Shinjuyu's shoulders, his voice soft. "Let's go." Just as he opened the door to the hospital room, a swarm of reporters wielding microphones and cameras surged in like a tidal wave. One reporter was the first to fire off a question, his voice loud and urgent. "Mr. Gu, is everything posted online true?" The media event was chaotic. Flashbulbs flickered relentlessly. One journalist launched the first sharp attack, his questioning voice piercing, his gaze shooting toward Gu Shimu like a blazing torch. "Mr. Gu, you abandoned a wealthy heiress who possesses both beauty and fortune, and you betrayed your girlfriend's mother. Was this purely for the thrill? Immediately, another reporter turned their fire on Shin Ju-yu, their words razor-sharp. Miss Shun, when you seduced your own daughter's husband, did you ever think about your daughter's feelings or your ex-husband's? Are you not afraid of being utterly despised by the public? Another reporter was relentless. Miss Shun, you stole your daughter's husband. Was it out of jealousy for your own daughter's happiness? Shun Ju-yu was surrounded by the pack of reporters, as fierce and terrifying as wolves and tigers. Her face went pale with shock. She couldn't hold back a startled cry. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and like a frightened deer, she hurriedly hid behind Gu Shirmu. Gu Shirmu's face turned a ghastly shade of iron gray, as if coated in a thick layer of frost. His eyes were filled with pure rage. He suddenly turned his head, his gaze as sharp as a blade, and stared death at Su Xiao, who lay on the ground. He ground his teeth and demanded, "Did you call these reporters here?" Su Xiao laboriously pulled at the corner of her lips, trying to form a cold sneer, but accidentally tugged at the wounds on her face. She sucked in a sharp, pained breath. Enduring the pain, she spoke with a tone of clear provocation. "Do you like the gift I sent you?" She calculated silently in her heart. "Just wait. 2 days from now, when I leave the country, I still have another surprise for you." This tumultuous, chaotic farce finally came to an end with the forceful intervention of bodyguards, who cleared out all the reporters. That very afternoon, the Gu group swiftly issued a public statement. The statement declared that Mr. Gu and Ms. Su had no relationship whatsoever. Mr. Gu and Ms. Shin Ju-yu were in a normal romantic relationship, and there was no such thing as betrayal. Everything was the delusional fantasy of Ms. Su, resulting from a mental illness she had developed. Gu Shirmu personally took to Weibo and posted, "My company has sent a lawyer's letter to Ms. Su Xiao. She will definitely pay the price for spreading these rumors. The wife of Gu Shirmu will only be Shin Ju-yu." The attached image was, shockingly, a photo of his and Shin Ju-yu's marriage certificate. The date of registration was precisely the very day he posted it. As soon as this news broke, online public opinion reversed instantly. Netizens flooded the comments. The rumor popped up this morning, and it's already publicly debunked by afternoon. The speed is insane. This is President Gu's first love. He must be head over heels. Look at the top trending topic. Su Xiao's photos. Oh my god, she must have been the one trying to seduce President Gu. My mom is also divorced. If she found a boyfriend like President Gu, I'd be the first to support her. I can't believe Su Xiao is competing with her own mother like this. So vicious.
Bang.
The hospital room door was violently kicked open. The loud crash made the very air in the room tremble. Even the bed beneath Su Xiao shook. Gu Shirmu charged in like a raging lion. His hair was disheveled, the veins on his neck bulging. His eyes were bloodshot, flickering with a murderous intent that sent chills down the spine. He rushed to the bedside in a few strides and reached out, seizing Su Xiao's chin with his fingers, forcing her head up to meet his gaze. But Su Xiao was utterly fearless. She curled her lip into a cold, mocking sneer. As expected of President Gu.
So swift.
You resolved that PR crisis so quickly. The violent fury in Gu Shirmu's eyes was almost tangible, his face as dark and ominous as the sky before a massive storm. His hands tightened, as if he wanted to twist Su Xiao's head right off. He spoke through clenched teeth. Jiayu slit her wrists. The baby is gone, and she's hemorrhaging badly. I'm going to drain every drop of your blood right now to save Jiayu. As soon as he finished, a few nurses in uniform rushed into the room. They ignored Su Xiao's struggles and pinned her forcefully to the bed. Su Xiao's heart lurched violently. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes. She cried out, "If you dare touch me, the Su family won't. We'll let you off." The nurse hesitated, her gaze shifting toward Gu Shirmu. Gu Shirmu's expression was cold and hard, his eyes showing not the slightest hesitation. He gave the order decisively. "Draw the blood." The moment the words were spoken, a sharp, piercing pain shot through Su Xiao's arm. An overwhelming terror, like a monstrous tidal wave, consumed her completely. Everyone knew she was bold and fiery, but very few knew that deep in her heart, her greatest fear was needles. And that secret, she had only ever confided to Gu Shirmu. Ugh! The intense pain made Su Xiao's body convulse involuntarily. Cold sweat instantly soaked through the back of her hospital gown, fine beads of sweat trickling down her neck. 2 bags of blood, 400 cubic centimeters each, were quickly drawn. The nurse's hand suddenly paused, and a deep worry filled her eyes. President Gu, we've already drawn 800 cubic centimeters. If we continue, Miss Su's life will be in danger. Su Xiao was in so much pain she couldn't even lift her eyelids. She could only faintly hear the man's cold, merciless voice. Continue drawing. Another 400 cubic centimeters bag of blood was extracted. Su Xiao's vision went dark, the sounds around her growing muffled and distant, as if everything was separated from her by a layer of water. The nurse's panicked shout came from somewhere far away. This is bad, President Gu. Miss Su's pulse is extremely weak. She's dying. Should we continue? In the silent space, time seemed to freeze for a moment before that same steady, unwavering voice spoke again. Jiuyu is still in critical condition. Continue the transfusion until she is out of danger. The surrounding noise and chaos gradually receded like a retreating tide. In her daze, she seemed to hear the man's low voice murmuring beside her ear. Su Xiao, once you've finished donating blood for Jiuyu, we are even. As her consciousness slowly sank into darkness, only one resolute thought remained in Su Xiao's mind. Gu Shirmu, you are dead wrong. I never owed Shinjuyu a single thing. I even wish I had never loved this man at all. Su Xiao never expected that she would actually wake up from that coma. She had been unconscious for a full 2 days. And today was the day she had originally planned to leave the country. When she slowly opened her eyes, what greeted her was an empty hospital room. There was not a single soul. She struggled to get out of bed, but her legs felt like she was stepping on cotton candy, completely limp and drained of strength. Her hands trembled slightly. After several attempts, she finally managed to yank out the 4-line with great difficulty. She stood up unsteadily, every step feeling like it used up all the energy she had left. When she passed by Shunjuyu's hospital room, she heard Shunjuyu's voice from inside, dripping with an air of grievance. That child, she was rebellious from a young age. Her grades were a complete mess, and she was always bullying people. In middle school, she got even worse, viciously tormenting a classmate. Drove the poor girl to jump off a building. The woman's voice was full of disgust, and she shook her head lightly as she spoke. In the end, I personally went to the school, knelt down, and begged the parents of that student for forgiveness. It cost a full $1 million just to bury the whole thing. She sighed, her eyes filled with helpless resignation. Later, she had an early romance. I don't even know whose bastard child she was carrying, but she snuck off to have an abortion. She spoke through gritted teeth, her hands unconsciously clenching into fists. By the time I found out, she was already lying on the operating table. I was kind enough to bring her some kanji, and what did she do? She screamed at me, told me to mind my own business, told me to get lost. Her voice grew more agitated, her chest heaving violently. Gu Qingqing gently patted Shinjuyu on the back, her voice filled with sympathy. Juyu, you're just too soft-hearted. That's why you keep letting her walk all over you. As she spoke, a flash of anger crossed her eyes. With me here, she will never dare hurt you again. She held Shinjuyu's hand tightly, her gaze firm with resolve. Su Xiao stood at the doorway, a sarcastic smirk forming at the corner of her lips. Hearing her own biological mother slander her like this with her own ears, it still managed to send a sharp sting through a heart that had long gone numb. But none of it mattered anymore. Dragging her exhausted body, she returned to the villa. She pushed the door open. It was utterly silent inside, completely empty. Before, Su Xiao had always believed Gu Shirmu was allergic to women, so they had always slept in separate rooms. She stayed in the guest bedroom, and Gu Shirmu took the master bedroom. That day, She pushed open the door to the master bedroom. A strange, sickeningly sweet fragrance wafted into her face. As her eyes adjusted, she saw the room was filled with a woman's belongings everywhere. The wardrobe was thrown wide open, crammed with dresses of every style, their dazzling colors glaring and harsh. In the corner, a woman's aromatherapy diffuser sat, thin wisps of smoke still curling upward. On the bed, several pieces of lingerie were tossed casually, a tangled mess of lace and gauze. Su Xiao's face was expressionless, her eyes cold as ice, like an emotionless sculpture. She rummaged through the room, her steps hurried and heavy, every movement filled with a sense of finality. Finally, in the corner under the bed, she spotted a talisman, a charm for safety and peace. The moment she saw it, her fingers trembled slightly, but then quickly steadied. She had never believed in gods or spirits. But to cure Gu Shirmu's allergy, she had once gritted her teeth and climbed, on her knees, step by step, up the 999 stairs of Puhua Mountain to beg for this protective talisman. Back then, she had held it reverently in both hands and presented it solemnly to Gu Shirmu, her eyes full of hope and love.
But now here it was,
tossed carelessly under the bed, covered in dust. The corner of Su Xiao's mouth twitched. A complex swirl of emotions flickered through her eyes, but it was swiftly replaced by cold indifference. She bent down, picked up the talisman, and rubbed it gently between her fingers. Then, as if discarding a burning hot coal, she hurled it fiercely to the ground. Next, she pulled out the gasoline can she had prepared, hidden behind her back, and began dousing every corner of the room with gasoline. The sound of the liquid splashing was jarringly clear in the silent room. The pungent odor spread rapidly. She tossed the empty can aside, pulled out a lighter, and flicked it with her thumb. Whoosh! The flames shot up instantly, like a ferocious beast, voraciously devouring everything in their path. The fire grew, the heat wave blasting against her face, scorching her skin. She stood still, watching it all in silence, not a ripple of emotion in her eyes. Those feelings that had spanned over 1,000 days and nights, just like these burning flames, were turning to ash in this very moment, vanishing without a trace. And she just stood there quietly, waiting for the inferno to burn every last piece of the past into nothing. Su Xiao gripped the handle of her suitcase tightly and hurried out of the luxurious villa. She looked back. The villa was being consumed relentlessly by the raging fire, the flames licking at everything hungrily. Thick, black smoke billowed upward. On the way to the airport, she sat in the back of the taxi and pulled her phone out of her pocket. She unlocked the screen, and what greeted her was a relentless flood of hateful comments. Even worse, there were victims stepping forward to publicly accuse her. I was Su Xiao's middle school classmate, and I was one of her victims. I was too scared to speak before, but now I must seek justice for the classmate who attempted suicide. Back then, Su Xiao took naked photos of that classmate and forced her to drink toilet water. She couldn't take the torment and decided to end her life. Su Xiao was infamous at her school. She was promiscuous from a young age, got knocked up by street thugs multiple times. She was basically public property. She even tried to find some guy at school to be her patsy, but her reputation was known by the whole school. Abortions 5 or 6 times. Who would dare take her? Su Xiao's brow furrowed deeply. The corner of her mouth lifted into a cold, derisive sneer. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen, and she posted a message directly to her own social media account. A set of explosive documents was released online. It included the alliance by marriage agreement between the Gu and Su families, photos of the fake marriage license, surveillance footage of Shen Juyu abusing Su Xiao as a child, and a complete premarital health examination report. Along with all of this was a caption that read, "Gu Shirmu, 5 years ago I was blind to have fallen for you. You didn't just toy with my feelings, you even had the nerve to try and be my stepfather. A man your age, and you still went for it. So I wish you two a lifetime together, never parting, growing old side by side." As soon as the message was posted, It triggered an explosion of activity across the entire internet. Su Xiao didn't even bother looking at the reactions. Her eyes were cold and detached. She loosened her grip and tossed the phone into the roaring flames of the burning villa behind her. When the phone hit the fire, it sent up a small spray of sparks. She smoothed the stray hairs by her ear with a habitual gesture, stepped into her high heels, and walked away step by resolute step. Standing outside the villa, she looked up at the vast, endless blue sky. It stretched overhead, as pure and flawless as a sapphire. She slowly closed her eyes, drew in a deep breath, and then exhaled slowly, as if expelling all the lingering shadows of the past. In her heart, she silently told herself, "I will break free from this quagmire of a past. I will go embrace a brand new life." Behind her, the phone in the flames vibrated frantically, its screen flickering amid the fire, as if trying to tell the story of the chaos raging in the outside world. "I knew there had to be a plot twist," netizen A typed furiously on their keyboard. "Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" Netizen B demanded anxiously in the comment section. A context summary appeared. Backstory: the man cheated on the woman with her own mother. When the woman exposed it, the man tried to frame her as mentally ill. Now the woman has stepped up, proving she is not mentally ill, and she was subjected to violent abuse by this couple. She has solid evidence proving the man's betrayal. Moreover, the woman's biological mother abused her when she was a child. This was also the reason the woman's father divorced her mother. One netizen, brow furrowed deeply, typed furiously, "Holy crap, this is beyond disgusting. My heart goes out to Su Xiao." Another slammed their hand on the desk in fury. Her own boyfriend and her own mom hooking up, that's just sick. From now on, I'm boycotting the Goo Group. The CEO is trash. How good can any company under him be? Yet another user, their face twisted in disgust, wrote, "Why doesn't this cheating scumbag just die? And that mother is pure evil. Not only did she abuse her daughter, she stole her boyfriend. She doesn't deserve to be a mother." Then, a different user adjusted their glasses and chimed in with a look of disdain. "Hold on, Su Xiao isn't exactly an angel either. Skipping school, early romances, school bullying in middle school. Looks like everyone's awful here." Su Xiao's comment section splintered into several warring factions. Everyone argued back and forth, exchanging heated words. The atmosphere was intensely combative. But at this very moment, Su Xiao knew nothing of any of this. An hour passed. The official police social media account and the middle school Su Xiao had attended both issued statements to clarify the situation, one after another. The posts clearly documented that Su Xiao had been an outstanding student during her time at school. She was not only diligent and eager to learn, but she had never engaged in any disciplinary violations. The police specifically pointed out that Shinjuyu had repeatedly and maliciously spread these rumors around the school and had shown no remorse despite being reprimanded multiple times. The middle school's official comment section instantly erupted with activity. Many alumni stepped forward to speak up for Su Xiao. One alum typed excitedly, fingers flying across the keys. "Anyone saying Su Xiao had bad grades probably didn't even go to our school. Back then, Su Xiao consistently held the top spot in our whole grade. So many people tried their hardest to knock her down, but it was all a waste of effort." Another alum, rubbing their nose unconsciously, commented with a nostalgic tone, "Early romance? Pregnancy? Some people just make up whatever they want." As someone who actually chased after Su Xiao back then, I have to speak up. I pursued her for an entire semester, so carefully. She was completely oblivious the whole time. She only had studies on her mind. I waited forever for the break, finally worked up the courage to confess. And what did she say, so casually? "Have your test scores hit 600 yet?" That shut me down instantly. Another voice joined online. "Senior Sue and I were classmates in middle school. There was never any suicide incident and no school bullying. Senior Sue was an incredibly kind person. Once, I was late and tried to climb over the wall. I slipped and twisted my ankle. It was Senior Sue who carried me to the infirmary." With these statements, major official accounts and countless netizens stepped forward to clear Su Xiao's name. In a flash, Su Xiao's image underwent a complete reversal. One netizen frowned, looking full of regret. Damn, now I genuinely feel terrible for Su Xiao. Another folded their arms, full of suspicion. A ton of those earlier comments were spreading disgusting sexual rumors, and now they're all debunked. Could it have been her own mom hiring online trolls? That's just pure evil. Another pair of eyes went wide with shock. My God, could it really be that her mother was the one making up sexual rumors about her own daughter? How deep does your hatred have to be? This is just revolting. The incident snowballed. People even managed to dig up Shen Juyu's social media accounts and contact information. A torrent of abuse flooded Shen Juyu's phone like a tidal wave. At this very moment, Shen Jiyu was leaning against Gu Shirmu. The two of them were walking slowly, preparing to be discharged from the hospital and return home. Shen Jiyu was fidgeting anxiously, twisting the hem of her shirt from time to time. Gu Shirmu's brow was deeply furrowed, his eyes full of concern as he warily scanned their surroundings. If Xiao sees this later, she'll throw another fit at you. At the mention of Su Xiao, Gu Shirmu's brow furrowed into a tight knot, his face full of irritation. I couldn't care less about her. As he spoke, he scooped Shen Jiyu up firmly in his arms, making a point to pull her closer, letting her head rest gently against his shoulder. To anyone watching, they looked exactly like an adoring, blissfully in-love couple. The two got into the car. Shen Jiyu hadn't slept well the previous night, so she closed her eyes as soon as she got in. Her head bobbed gently with the motion of the vehicle. Gu Shirmu turned and quietly instructed the driver. Back to the villa. The car moved forward smoothly. Suddenly, Gu Shirmu's phone rang. An anxious voice came through from the other end. This is bad, President Gu. Miss Su set the villa on fire. Gu Shirmu's brow creased just slightly, his eyes showing nothing but contempt. It's just a villa. Let it burn. Don't bother me with these trivial matters. After hanging up, he turned to the driver and said, Go to the villa on the west side of the city. Tell her to come see me. She's been through all this suffering and still hasn't learned her lesson. Seems I've been too lenient with her before. Gu Shirmu felt a surge of irritation in his chest. He yanked at his collar, his tie now slightly askew. Just as he finished speaking, Gu Shirmu's phone rang again. It was one of his close buddies calling. He frowned slightly and answered. His friend's loud, brash voice came through the line. Old Gu, you finally picked up. Is all that stuff Su Xiao posted online true? Man, you've really got issues, leaving a gorgeous woman like Su Xiao to go after her mom. Aren't you scared she'll pull the same kind of crap on kids like she did before? Gu Shirmu's face darkened. His voice dropped, low and stern. Don't talk nonsense. Jiao Yu is not that kind of person. His buddy paused, his tone carrying a hint of surprise. You haven't seen what's going on online yet? An unsettling feeling stirred in Gu Shirmu's gut. His frown deepened. He didn't know what his friend was referring to, but that feeling of unease was growing stronger by the second. Anyway, if you don't want Su Xiao, then we're all going to start chasing after this beauty. His buddy was still rambling on the other end. Back then, her heart was set on you. Now that you're out of the picture, we've got no more reservations. Stop your goddamn nonsense. Gu Shirmu suddenly clenched his fists, his face so dark it looked ready to drip ink. He absolutely couldn't believe that Su Xiao no longer had him in her heart. She was the one who had clung to him so desperately back then. How could she possibly just let go? Gu Shirmu felt his heart hammering wildly in his chest. He hurriedly ended the call with his buddy, his hand still holding the phone, his fingers trembling slightly. He hesitated, afraid to make the next move. After a long moment, he gritted his teeth and tapped into Su Xiao's social media profile. The pinned post was still sitting right there at the top, with numerous netizens still actively discussing it in the comments. Gu Shirmu didn't even glance at the comments below. He directly opened the videos and images Su Xiao had posted. The marriage alliance agreement, the fake marriage certificate, the video of his betrayal with Shen Jiyu, Su Xiao's medical injury report, and the surveillance video of Shin Ju-yu abusing Su Xiao. The video was from a home security camera installed over a decade ago. The footage was slightly blurry from age, but it was still crystal clear that the people in it were Shin Ju-yu and a young Su Xiao. Little Su Xiao was hiding under the table in terror, curled up in a tiny, trembling ball, clutching her head, letting out soft, whimpering cries. Her small body wouldn't stop shaking. Shin Ju-yu's face was twisted with vicious fury, a ruler clutched in her hand. She thrust her arm under the table, grabbed Su Xiao by the collar, and dragged her out like she was hauling a chicken. A child of just a few years old had no strength against an adult. Su Xiao struggled desperately, her little legs kicking wildly. But no matter how hard she fought, she couldn't break free from Shin Ju-yu's grip. Shin Ju-yu dragged Su Xiao right up to her, then started raining punches and slaps down on her. Every blow was fueled by pure rage, as if she wanted to vent every ounce of her hatred on this child. Su Xiao was beaten so badly it felt like every bone in her body was about to shatter. She screamed and wailed at the top of her lungs.
Mommy, I'm sorry.
It hurts. Please stop hitting me. The piercing, desperate cries echoed through the room. Shin Ju-yu's eyes bulged like bronze bells. She raised the ruler high and brought it down viciously on the child. Her face was more twisted than a demon's. I'll beat you to death. You little fox spirit. I told you to smile. Don't think I don't know what nasty schemes are in your head. You dare seduce my husband. You've got a death wish. I should never have given birth to you. Su Xiao cried until her tears and snot mingled together. She shook her head desperately, her throat raw and hoarse. I didn't. Mommy, I'll be good. I won't smile anymore. Please stop hitting me. The moment this surveillance footage was released, the rage of the online community ignited completely. What the actual hell? A human being did this? This woman calls herself a mother? One netizen was the first to comment, followed by a string of furious emojis. Oh my God, she actually saw her own daughter as a romantic rival? How could anyone say such vile things? Another replied in shock. No wonder she's now stealing her daughter's boyfriend. It's because she's jealous of her own daughter. How is someone like this still alive? She deserves to rot in the deepest pit of hell. Another added with righteous fury. And President Gu actually fell for someone like this? Is he blind? He tossed aside Miss Su for a domestic abuser? Gu Shermu stared at these videos and comments. His fingers unconsciously tightened on the phone, his knuckles turning white. His breathing became ragged, his chest heaving violently. A new comment popped up. A man knows the true face of the woman lying beside him. I'd say President Gu is no saint either. Did you see Su Xiao's injury report? Chances are high that President Gu inflicted those himself. Classic domestic abuser. No wonder these two are perfect for each other. Nothing more to say. I hope they stay locked together forever. And I hope Su Xiao finds real happiness soon. Gu Shermu's face was as dark as a thundercloud. He turned his head to look at Shin Ju-yu, who was sleeping soundly beside him. His eyes were filled with utter disbelief. He couldn't reconcile the woman in that surveillance footage with the woman he knew. Then, he saw the clarification posts released by various official accounts. Every piece of evidence was laid out clearly before his eyes. Gu Shermu felt as though he had been struck by lightning. He sat there frozen, his mind reeling. Shin Ju-yu had told him that Su Xiao was a worthless student, a promiscuous troublemaker who got pregnant and had abortions, a person rotten to the core. But the internet had revealed the truth. During middle school, Su Xiao was an excellent student, a person of moral integrity, always willing to help others. Gu Shermu stared hard at Shin Ju-yu. His hands clenched unconsciously. It felt as if an invisible hand had grabbed his heart and was squeezing it viciously. He didn't know who to believe anymore. His thoughts couldn't help but drift back 10 years. He was just a teenager playing at the beach. He had accidentally fallen into deep water and was drowning. At the edge of despair, it was Shin Ju-yu who saved him. He remembered lying on the sand, slowly opening his eyes, and meeting Shin Ju-yu's smiling gaze. Shin Ju-yu had reached out and gently tapped the tip of his nose. her voice soft. "The water's really deep here. You have to be careful when you're playing. Next time, you might not be so lucky." Behind Shinjuyu, the Gu family members who had been frantically searching for him were rushing over. She saw them, smiled, and said, "Your family is here. I should go. Stay safe." Gu Shirmu was mesmerized, completely dazed. It wasn't until Shinjuyu stood up to leave that he snapped out of it. He hurriedly grabbed the edge of her clothes and asked urgently, "What's your name?" Shinjuyu turned back, her gaze firm and steady. She enunciated each word clearly.
Shun. Jiao. You.
Make sure you remember it clearly. From that day on, Shinjuyu's eyes and her name were etched deep into Gu Shirmu's heart. But now, all signs pointed to the fact that this woman he had always believed to be gentle and kind was, in reality, vicious and cruel. And she had tormented her own daughter mercilessly. This revelation left Gu Shirmu utterly shocked and unable to accept it. And what infuriated him even more was that Su Xiao was actually trying to leave him. Back then, Gu Shirmu had been actively searching for Shinjuyu. It wasn't until 5 years ago, when he met Su Xiao in a plaza, a woman who bore a 70% resemblance to Shinjuyu. He had deliberately, subtly drawn her attention. When the Su family proposed a marriage alliance, he had pretended to reluctantly nod his agreement on the surface, but deep down, he was secretly satisfied. But now, someone was telling him that Su Xiao no longer had him in her heart. How was that even possible? Gu Shirmu's fists clenched tighter and tighter, his knuckles white. His eyes revealed a flash of fury and unwillingness. He absolutely refused to believe that Su Xiao could leave him so easily. Gu Shirmu pulled out his phone, his long fingers deftly dialing Su Xiao's number. The phone rang and rang on the other end, but no one picked up. He frowned, a flicker of displeasure crossing his eyes. He quickly dialed the house servant's number, his voice carrying an undeniable authority. "Where did Su Xiao go?" The servant's voice on the other end trembled with fear. "Sir, Miss Su set the villa on fire and then left, dragging a large suitcase. We tried to stop her, but couldn't. We honestly have no idea where she went." Gu Shirmu's face instantly darkened. He slammed the phone down, the device creaking under the pressure of his grip. He admitted it. When he had kept Su Xiao by his side, it was only as a substitute. But even so, how dare she just leave on her own? Shinji stirred and slowly woke up. She noticed the car was not heading toward the villa on the west side of the city. She sat up a little straighter, her eyes full of confusion, and asked softly, "Where are we going now?" Gu Shirmu sat in the driver's seat, his expression complex. The emotions in his eyes were a tangled fog that Shinjuyu couldn't read. He gripped the steering wheel tightly and said in a deep voice, "To find someone. He had to go clarify some things." Shinjuyu didn't think much of it. She tilted her body coquettishly, wanting to lean on Gu Shirmu's shoulder for comfort. But Gu Shirmu subtly shifted to the side, evading her touch without leaving a trace. Shinjuyu's body froze midair, a flash of bewilderment crossing her face. She furrowed her delicate brows, her tone carrying a hint of dissatisfaction. "What's wrong with you? Did Xiao say something to you?" Gu Shirmu slowly turned his head at her words, fixing his intense gaze on her. Shinjuyu felt her heart flutter with unease under his stare. She lifted her eyes, glancing at him, tears beginning to well up, looking pitiful and fragile. "That child has been an expert at playing the victim and lying since she was young. Don't let her fool you." Gu Shirmu just grunted a muffled in response, his gaze turning toward the window. No one knew what he was thinking. A surge of anxiety rose in Shinjuyu's chest. She bit her lip nervously and fumbled in her bag for her phone, her movements anxious. Her phone had died yesterday. She plugged it into the charger and pressed the power button. The moment the screen lit up, countless text message notifications pinged in. Blinding, vicious curse words flooded her vision.
Ah!
Shinjuyu shrieked, her hand jerking. The phone slipped and clattered to the floor. Gu Shirmu turned his head slightly, his eyes calm. "What's wrong?" Shinjuyu swallowed hard, her eyes filled with terror and helplessness. She looked to Gu Shirmu for help, her voice trembling. Fei, so many messages, people cursing at me. Can you arrest them all and throw them in jail? Gu Shirmu's face was blank, his eyes cold.
He spoke flatly.
What did you do to make them curse at you like this? Shun Juyu froze, as if doused with a bucket of ice water. She finally realized something was very, very wrong. In the past, if she so much as frowned, Gu Shirmu would be heartbroken, pulling her into his arms and soothing her with gentle words. But today, he was so cold, so distant. She bit her lip, her mind racing with speculation. Something's not right. Could it be that little fox spirit Su Xiao stirring up trouble again? Shun Juyu was just about to open her mouth to demand an explanation when Gu Shirmu suddenly said coldly, "We're here." Shun Juyu followed Gu Shirmu's line of sight. What she saw was an elegant, exquisite villa. It might not compare to the sprawling, majestic Gu family estate, but judging by the exterior, the person living here was certainly no ordinary individual. She got out of the car, full of curiosity, guessing that it might be another one of Gu Shirmu's properties. She couldn't help but ask, "Why did you bring me here?" Gu Shirmu didn't answer. He simply raised his hand and pressed the doorbell. After a short wait, the door slowly opened, and a man in his 40s stepped out. The moment the man saw the two of them, he paused briefly, his gaze landing on Shun Juyu behind Gu Shirmu. His face instantly darkened. His tone was hostile. "What are you doing here?" Shun Juyu's heart jolted with shock, because she recognized this man. He was her ex-husband and Su Xiao's biological father. Gu Shirmu looked at Father Su, gave a slight nod, and spoke politely. "Father-in-law." Father Su let out a cold, disdainful laugh. "President Gu, I can't bear such a title from you. Your father-in-law died 10 years ago." Gu Shirmu paused for a split second, his composure unshaken. "Father-in-law, you joke again. Su Xiao and I are not divorced. You will always be my father-in-law." Father Su was so angry his teeth ground together. "Not divorced, huh? You and Xiao were never even married. What divorce is there to talk about?" He shifted his glare to Shun Juyu, his eyes filled with revulsion. "And now you bring this vicious woman here. What do you want?" Shun Jiaoyu's eyes narrowed, her face turning incredibly sour. "I am not a vicious woman." Father Su snorted coldly, his emotions spiraling further. "The things you did to Xiao, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? If you're not a vicious woman, what are you?" His anger mounted with every word. His hands clenched into fists. He looked ready to charge forward and demand justice for Su Xiao. Shun Juyu turned pale. She instinctively grabbed Gu Shirmu's sleeve and said urgently, "Fei, don't listen to his nonsense. It must be Su Xiao who filled his head with lies to turn him against me. I'm not a vicious woman. You have to believe me." Gu Shirmu looked at her, then calmly pulled out his phone without any change in expression. The screen was playing the surveillance video of her domestic abuse. His gaze was stern. He slowly spoke. "Then explain this to me." The sounds of a woman's vicious curses and a child's pitiful screams rang out clearly from the phone. Shun Juyu's face turned as white as a sheet in an instant. Her eyes darted around in panic. She reflexively denied it. "That's not how it is. Fei, you have to believe me. This must be fake, it has to be. That little fox spirit Su Xiao is behind this. She just wants to drive you away from me." "Shut up." Gu Shirmu's brow furrowed deeply. A flicker of disappointment and fury crossed his eyes. Father Su, standing nearby, erupted. His eyes bulged with fury, the veins on his neck popping. He roared, "Even now you refuse to admit your wrongs. Xiao is just a little child. What could she have possibly done wrong? How could you treat her with such cruelty? She is your own biological daughter." Shun Jiaoyu's eyes widened like brass bells. She shrieked, "She's not. She is not my daughter. If I had known I was carrying a girl in my womb, I would have had her aborted while I was still pregnant, rather than let her be born to steal my man." Father Su was utterly horrified. He kept shaking his head, his brow twisted into a tight knot. "You are beyond redemption.